Listen to me. Let me tell you the truth that no one wants to say out loud. The world is confused, the alliances are shifting, but India has made its choice. India, this rising giant, this unstoppable force, trusts only one country. And today, I'm going to give you the 5 shocking reasons why. India has learned through centuries of struggle and decades of modern geopolitics that trust is not something you simply give away because of sweet words or temporary benefits. Trust is not a gift, it is not charity. It is something that has to be earned through action, through consistency, through loyalty that stands the test of time. India is not naive anymore. It has seen empires rise and fall. It has seen nations come forward with open arms only to hide knives behind their backs. It has witnessed promises being broken the moment those promises no longer serve the interests of others. This is why India today does not spread its trust like seeds in the wind. Instead, it protects it like a treasure, giving it only to the one who has proven worthy. If we look back at history, every major power has at some point tried to pull India into its orbit. The British colonized and exploited it for centuries, taking its wealth while pretending to offer civilization. The Cold War superpowers each tried to twist India's arm into submission, one side offering aid with hidden strings, the other threatening isolation if India dared to be independent. In the 21st century, we see the same tactics: sanctions, pressure, lectures, conditional support, and transactional deals dressed up as friendships. But India has become wiser. India has realized that when it comes to global politics, every handshake must be weighed, every smile must be studied, and every promise must be tested against the reality of action. That is why India's trust today is not given to the West as a bloc, nor to China, nor to opportunistic neighbors who shift their loyalties with the wind. India remembers betrayal, and betrayal burns deep. When wars were fought on its borders, when crises struck its economy, when international institutions failed to recognize its voice, India took note of who stood by and who turned away. And let me tell you something, India never forgets. It may forgive, but it never forgets. The one country India trusts has earned that trust by showing respect, not by imposing conditions. Respect matters more to India than anything else. You cannot lecture a civilization that has existed for thousands of years about democracy, culture, or freedom. You cannot treat a nation of 1.4 billion like a student while you act as the teacher. Too many countries made that mistake, and they lost India's confidence forever. But the one nation India truly trusts does not speak to it like a pupil. It speaks to it like an equal. That is what India demands: equality in partnership, equality in respect, equality in vision. Trust also comes from consistency. The world is full of opportunistic alliances, shifting sands of diplomacy where friends one day turn into enemies the next. India has seen it all. But what makes trust real is when a partner stays steady regardless of storms, when sanctions come from others, but support comes from one. When the world tries to isolate but one hand reaches out to strengthen. This is how trust is built, not by words, not by speeches, but by actions repeated again and again. And the final point is this: trust is earned through sacrifice. India looks at who was willing to stand with it, even when it was not fashionable, even when there was risk involved, even when there was no short-term benefit. Because true friendship, true partnership, is revealed in difficulty, not in times of comfort. And India has marked in its memory the one who stayed when others left. That is why in 2025, India is crystal clear: its trust belongs to only one country. Because trust is not cheap, trust is not a gift. Trust is earned with respect, loyalty, and sacrifice. Shared blood, shared struggle, shared destiny. These are not empty words when we speak about India's trust. India is a nation that has endured invasions, colonization, exploitation, and endless attempts to break its spirit. Yet through all of this, it has survived, risen, and rebuilt itself stronger each time. In its long memory, India does not only look at who stood against it, but also at who stood with it. That is why the foundation of trust lies not in speeches or treaties written on paper, but in real bonds forged in times of hardship. The one country that India trusts today is the one that stood shoulder to shoulder with it when it mattered most, not the ones who showed up late to claim the rewards after the struggle was already won. History is the best teacher in geopolitics. When India fought for its independence, it looked around and saw who supported its cause, who believed in its right to self-rule, and who tried to suppress its freedom. Some nations merely watched, calculating how they could profit from the power shift. Others pretended to sympathize, but secretly backed the very colonial power that ruled over India. Yet the one trusted ally was the one that acknowledged India's suffering as real, that recognized the value of freedom as universal, and that believed India deserved to stand on its own. This bond was not forged in opportunism, it was forged in shared ideals and shared pain. Shared struggle is a powerful glue. Nations that endure trials together develop a bond that no amount of money or military deals can replicate. Think of the times when India faced wars on its borders. Many of the so-called great powers either stayed silent or played both sides to maximize their own gains. They sold weapons to India's enemies. They cut off crucial supplies, and they tried to dictate India's moves like puppeteers pulling strings. But the one country that India trusts showed solidarity, offering support not to control, but to strengthen. That memory runs deep in India's heart, because true friendship is revealed in crisis, not in comfort. But it is not only about war and politics. Shared blood is also about shared sacrifice for humanity. India remembers which nations stood with it during natural disasters, during food shortages, during health crises, when the nation was still developing and vulnerable. Not every country extended a helping hand without demanding something in return. But this one country did, and it showed that partnership is not about exploitation, it is about standing together when survival itself is at stake. Such moments are not forgotten. They create a spiritual connection, a sense of destiny tied together by history. Shared destiny is the final element, and perhaps the most powerful one. India is not just looking backward, it is looking forward. It knows the 21st century is a turning point. Old empires are declining, new powers are rising, and the balance of the world is shifting. In this uncertain time, India is asking itself, who shares the same vision of the future? Who wants to build a multipolar world where no one dictates terms to another? Who believes in sovereignty, dignity, and mutual progress? That answer is clear. It is not the nations that cling to their old privileges and lecture others. It is not those who stab allies in the back for temporary gain. The one country India trusts is the one that sees India not as a market or a pawn, but as a partner in shaping the future of humanity. That is why India's trust is rooted in shared blood, shared struggle, and shared destiny. It is not blind trust. It is not sentimental trust. It is trust that comes from history, from sacrifice, from tested loyalty, and from a shared vision of tomorrow. India knows who stood with it when the world turned away, and it knows who will walk beside it into the future. Power respects power. This is one of the oldest truths in human history, and it is even more true in geopolitics. India has never been a nation that bows before threats, nor does it accept charity disguised as friendship. It has been pushed, it has been pressured, and it has been underestimated for decades. Yet India has proven that it will never bend to the will of others, and when it looks out into the world, it places its trust not in those who try to dominate it, or in those who hide weakness behind kind words. India trusts the one country that understands the essence of equality, that only equals can truly respect each other. That is why power respects power, and that is why India's trust is so selective. For far too long, many nations tried to approach India with arrogance. They believed that because they had wealth, weapons, or influence, India would automatically follow them. They mistook patience for weakness and independence for indecision. They thought they could dictate terms, set conditions, and shape India's destiny according to their own convenience. But what they failed to understand is that India has always been a civilization of strength. From the Vedic age to the modern republic, India has endured and overcome every challenge thrown at it. You cannot lecture a nation that has faced centuries of conquest and yet emerged alive, strong and unbroken. This is why India has no respect for nations that approach it with superiority. Respect is earned only through mutual recognition of power. The one country that India trusts has never tried to act like a master. It has never tried to treat India as a junior partner, a student, or a follower. Instead, it has spoken the language of partnership. It has said, "We are equals, we are allies, and we grow together." That simple recognition is powerful. Because when two strong nations come together with mutual respect, their bond becomes unshakable. No manipulator can break it, no outsider can weaken it, and no threat can dissolve it. Power respecting power also means acknowledging sovereignty. Too many nations have tried to interfere in India's internal matters, to criticize its democracy, to pass judgments on its policies, or to impose sanctions when it made decisions in its own interest. This has always angered India, because no sovereign nation accepts interference in its internal affairs, but the one trusted partner has consistently respected India's right to chart its own path. It has said, "We may not agree on everything, but we will never try to control you." That attitude, that recognition of sovereignty, is the true sign of strength. Because weak nations try to control others, but strong nations respect the independence of equals. Another dimension of power respecting power is in defense and security. India is not interested in being someone else's shield or someone else's pawn. It wants partners, not masters. That is why it has deepened ties with the one country that treats it as a strategic equal, not a subordinate. Instead of dictating military cooperation, this partner offers collaboration. Instead of demanding blind loyalty, it offers mutual protection. That is the essence of true respect in the realm of power. Finally, power respects power because strength recognizes strength. India sees in its trusted partner a reflection of its own spirit, the refusal to be dominated, the determination to rise, and the vision to create a future on its own terms. When two powers share this understanding, their trust becomes inevitable. It is not born of weakness or dependence, it is born of mutual strength. That is why India trusts this one country, because in a world full of arrogance, manipulation and exploitation, only one nation has looked at India and said, "We are equals," and India, being the power it is, respects that above all else. Economics speak louder than politics, and India knows this truth better than most. For decades, the world has witnessed a simple pattern. When political speeches fade, when promises lose their shine, what remains is trade, investment, and the flow of resources. Nations may speak of friendship, but if they impose restrictions, sanctions, and barriers, then their actions betray their words. India has grown wise to this. It has seen who offered genuine economic partnership and who used economics as a weapon to control. That is why India trusts only the one country that chose opportunity over exploitation, growth over greed, and partnership over pressure. India's rise as an economic powerhouse has not been an accident. It has been the result of careful planning, bold reforms, and the hard work of its people. But no nation can grow in isolation. Trade routes, energy flows, technology sharing, and capital investments shape the path of every modern state. The countries that India trusted least were the ones that used economic tools as traps. They dangled aid while attaching strings. They offered loans with hidden clause of dependence. They opened markets only to close them suddenly when India began to succeed. These were not partnerships. These were chains disguised as gifts. And India has learned to break those chains. The one country India trusts has followed a very different path. Instead of punishing India for choosing its own direction, it rewarded India with deeper economic ties. Instead of lecturing India about what policies to adopt, it offered technology and markets to strengthen India's choices. Instead of seeing India as just a consumer base, it had India as a co-creator of value. That difference is monumental, because India is not a beggar nation, nor a pawn. It is a rising force that wants partners who recognize its potential, not predators who fear it. Economics also speaks in times of crisis. India has faced fuel shortages, food crises, and global financial turbulence. The so-called allies from the West often responded with lectures, sanctions, or pressure to abandon independent policies. They demanded India cut ties with one nation or align with another in exchange for temporary relief. That kind of manipulation only deepened mistrust, but the one trusted partner stepped in during those hard times without conditions. It provided energy when others tried to strangle supplies. It opened trade when others closed their doors. It gave India breathing room to continue growing at its own pace. Those actions spoke louder than every political statement made on international stages. Technology is another pillar of economics. Many nations hoarded advanced technology, using it as leverage to keep India dependent. They made promises of cooperation but pulled back at the last moment, fearing India's rise. But the trusted partner saw collaboration as strength, not a threat. Whether it was energy infrastructure, defense production, or critical technologies, it opened the door to joint development that not only built India's capacity but also cemented trust. Because when someone shares what is valuable to them, they are signaling genuine partnership. Most importantly, economics speaks to the future. India is building a century of growth, and it will not walk with partners who look at it as a short-term market. It will only trust those who want to shape decades of prosperity together. The country India trusts is aligned with this vision. Together, they are building corridors of trade, networks of energy, and systems of finance that bypass the manipulation of old powers. This is not charity. This is a long-term design of strength. That is why India trusts only one. Because when politics shifts like the wind, economics shows the truth. And the truth is that this partner has chosen growth with India, not control over India. That makes the bond unshakable, and that makes the future unstoppable. The future is already written, and India knows it. The 21st century does not belong to the old empires of the past. It belongs to the nations that have the vision, resilience, and partnerships to shape what is coming. India has learned from history that alliances based only on convenience or fear will not survive. What matters now is trust, vision, and a shared roadmap for tomorrow. That is why India has placed its trust in only one country, because it recognizes that the future is not about domination, it is about cooperation. The shocking truth is that India has already chosen the partner it sees walking alongside it into this new age. Look at the global landscape today. Old superpowers are fading, their influence is shrinking, their credibility is questioned, and their arrogance has left scars across continents. Meanwhile, India is rising, not because of colonial wealth or exploitation, but because of the strength of its people, its democracy, and its ability to adapt. India knows that in the decades ahead, it will play a central role in shaping global trade, security, and technology. But it also knows that no power, no matter how great, can shape the future alone. The world is too interconnected, too complex, too fast-moving for isolation. This is why India seeks partnership, but only with one country it truly trusts to build a future that benefits both sides. The future is about multipolarity. The age of one nation dominating the world is over. India is not interested in joining someone else's empire or becoming a pawn in a new Cold War. It wants a balanced world where strong nations cooperate as equals. And in that vision, India trusts only the partner that shares this same belief. The one that says, we rise together, we lead together. Not the ones who constantly demand alignment, obedience, or blind loyalty. India has had enough of that. It will not bow, and it will not be bought. It will only join hands with a partner that treats it as a co-leader of the future. The future is also economic. By 2050, India is expected to be one of the top 3 economies in the world. This transformation is not a dream, it is happening now. The partner India trusts is already investing in this journey, not to extract wealth, but to grow together. They are building trade routes, energy networks, and technological ecosystems that will define global commerce for decades. While others worry about how to contain India's rise, this partner is betting on it, accelerating it, and aligning its own growth with India's. That is not opportunism, that is destiny shared. The future is technological. Artificial intelligence, space exploration, defense innovation, green energy, all of these will define the strength of nations in the coming century. India remembers who tried to block it from technology in the past, who denied it access, who imposed restrictions because they feared India's potential. But it also remembers who opened the door, who offered cooperation instead of control. That trust cannot be shaken, because technology is the foundation of sovereignty in the modern age. And India will never again allow itself to be dependent on those who hold it back. Finally, the future is about leadership. The world is searching for voices of reason, balance, and strength. Old powers have lost credibility because they overplayed their hand, using war and coercion instead of vision and cooperation. India has a different path to offer, and it knows its trusted partner shares that path. Together they stand not as oppressors of the world, but as builders of a new order. Together they will define the rules, not follow them. Together they will shape a century where no nation has to fear exploitation, because equality is the core principle. That is why India's trust in one country is not just about the past, or even the present, it is about the future already written. India knows who will walk with it into tomorrow, who will share the burdens and the victories, who will build a new order with strength and respect. The shocking truth is that the bond is already sealed, and nothing can break it. The future belongs to India and the one country it trusts, and the world will soon have no choice but to accept it.